Hello everybody, my name is Sniper Spawn and welcome you all back to my next top 10 list I'm going to present to all of you here on YouTube. This time, I'm going to be tackling a topic that I actually did do a top 10 list before on. And that is anime that need another season. Now, for those of you who don't remember necessarily or didn't pay attention to my top 10 list way back when, a little over a year ago, like the end of 2015, when I started doing these top 10 lists, and quite frankly, when I started doing when I was doing them slideshows, one of the first top 10 lists I did, I think it was my second one. My first one was the Smash Brothers one. My second one was anime that I feel need at least another, season or two or whatever. Anime that need at least one more season. And I did that top 10 list, and then afterwards I started looking at other anime stuff, and I started seeing okay, this series might need one, this series might need one. Stuff that came after that I felt there's enough anime out there that I could do a second list on this topic. And this topic is going to be another top 10 anime I feel need another season. This will be part 1, numbers 10 through number 6. And then part 2 will be numbers 5 through 1 with all their honorable mentions, like I've been doing since I've been splitting these into 2 parts. Now, before I get started, I want to make 2 quick announcements on this list. Just so you know, if you didn't pay attention to my first list, you don't have to necessarily go back to it, because right now I'm going to be telling you numbers 10 through 1 of my first list, just so you can know what anime back then I said, so you don't really expect to see them in this one. And then I'm going to say something else after that. On my first list, number 10 was Princess Jellyfish, 9 was Ouran High School Host Club, 8 was Fruits Basket, 7 was Black Lagoon, 6 was Heaven's Lost Property, 5 was Blue Exorcist. When I did that list, it was before we got now the Kyoto arc. Now we finally got that. 4 was Devil is a Part-Timer. That one really needs it. 3 is Blood Lad. 2 is Sekirei. And number 1 was Spice and Wolf, which really freaking needs it. And my second announcement is there was another anime I was going to include on this list that was an honorable mention on my last list. And it relates to the shirt I have right now in terms of Pokemon. I originally was going to put Pokemon Origins to have a sequel, another season or so on this list. This list was started months ago, people. This was before they announced Pokemon Generations, so I pulled it from the list. There you go. And a third announcement, I said 2, but I just remembered the third one, sorry. Some of the honorable mentions from my last list, 1 or 2 of them maybe, not including Pokemon Generations, have been included on this list. So if you paid attention to that list and watched that list a little over a year ago, you know some potential choices that are going to be on this one. Hope you guys kind of understood those little things. Just want to let you guys know just before we get this started, just so you can kind of understand and know before we go into actually, doing the actual list. Now, to make sure this intro doesn't go on forever and so freaking long, let's get this list started with my number 10 of this top 10 list. Nura: Rise of the Yokai Clan. This anime I only recently watched around a year ago. I liked it. I kind of watched it out of order. I watched the beginning of season 2 before I even went in to watch season 1, because Netflix is stupid and only has part 1 of season 2, and not me being stupid and oblivious to the whole freaking series. Watch season 2 first, because I'm like, oh, this is beginning of season 1. And they start talking about stuff that happened. I'm like, did I miss something? And then I went on Hulu and I watched it, and then went back and watched the rest of season 2. It was a good series, and Nura, the yokais and his clan and him taking over from his grandfather and blah, blah, blah. It was such interesting, characters and stories and whatnot. Season 2 ends on such a freaking cliffhanger, and I hate when they do this. Oh, we beat the villain, but we didn't actually beat the villain. The villain... Oh, and before I even go further in this list, there's going to be some spoilers on here, and I'm sorry. If you haven't watched these series, don't watch this video. Nura, I kind of spoiled it. I'm sorry for that, but I'm going to mention it now. Before I get started with the rest of part 1 and get into part 2, there's going to be some spoilers. The series ends, oh, we beat the villain, this main female villain of the season, but we didn't actually beat her. She goes back to her realm, and she's working to get stronger, and we have to be prepared for when she comes back. And that never happens. They don't have a season 3. And the villain, she never comes back. And this series was a couple years ago, and it's probably never going to happen. There's no clear conclusion to the main villain of the second season actually beating her, legitimately beating her. I hate when series do that. I hate it with a passion when anime does that. Oh, we beat the villain, but they're going to come back stronger eventually. And that some series do that, and other series just end. And I'm like, oh, it was getting so good too. And that's my number 10. That's the main reason we need a conclusion to it. Number 9. Panty and Stocking. And I'll keep this one brief and simple. The series is hilarious. It has awesome characters and story. The art style is unique, being more American cartoon based. And what's wrong with more Panty and Stocking? You get some awesome transformations, awesome comedy and fight scenes mixed together with some cool art style, cool setting, cool story. There's more that it can go with. There's only one freaking season. It's like 12 episodes, I recall. I never watched the entire series. This is like one of the few series on my top 10 list from the first one and this one that I didn't watch the entirety of yet. Most of these anime on this list and the first one I actually watched all of, if not every single series. This might be the only exception right here. It's just such an awesome series and unique, and it's so popular and has such a good like premise and stuff about it. I really would love to see more. That's my number 9. Here's my number 8. Rosario Vampire, because, and I know a lot of people don't really like that this, deviated from the manga in terms of making this series super ecchi and super fan servicey, and I get that, and it does get a little overdone sometimes, but when you look past that, I actually kind of like the characters and the story that they were going for about this random Tsukine. I forgot what's his freaking name. I have it written down here. Tsukune. Going to a monster school, being a human, and trying to blend in with these monsters that are in human form, going to school because that's the only school he was freaking accepted in. And it's just kind of interesting how they talk about diversity and prejudice and all this stuff throughout the series. It's like a little subtlety between the comedy, which overtakes it a lot, and it's the reason why I kind of got annoyed. And Heaven's Lost Property, I kind of got so interested in the story, but the ecchi and the comedy kind of overtook it, and I enjoyed it for that, but I was so interested in the story and the characters, and I want to see where it goes, and sometimes it doesn't go there. This series, I think, went a little bit further with that, like at least in terms of story, and it talks about stuff like that in between all the etchiness and all the comedy, and I liked it in the story and the characters, and it's just like Neurorise the Yokai Clan. It feels like there's more. At the end of Season 2, they go find Mocha, the main female vampire character's father. Oh, we have to save her to bring her back to her old self, or to get this and get that and whatever. And Tsukune fights him, beats him, and they go back to school. That's it. There's no clear conclusion, and then there's some stuff at the end that would lead up to a potential Season 3, and nothing comes from it. Like, oh, they talk about events that come this and that. It's not on the level of, say, a Blood Lad, which gives you like 15 billion questions unanswered in the last freaking episode of the series and never gives you a second season, which is stupid. But it gives you some stuff, like it feels like it's going to lead into something, some future events, and they never do it. And that was a couple years ago, too. And I feel it should have at least another season, or at the very least, if you really want to do it like this, restart the series from the beginning and make it less ecchi and more adapted to the manga, like Sailor Moon Crystal or Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. There you go. That's my number 8. Here's my number 7. Tokyo Mew Mew. And I know this is asking a lot, and it's just like my Fruits Basket on my first list, because it's such an older series, like early-ish 2000s, early to mid 2000s, and the chance of it ever getting another season, or maybe potentially a redone series more closer to the manga, is probably unlikely. But I really want to see it, and I really got into Tokyo Mew Mew. It was one of my favorite anime from the early mid 2000s. And yes, I watched the 4Kids version, Mew Mew Power, and it was still enjoyable, as censored as it was. And then I watched the Japanese version years later and absolutely loved it and marathoned it like in a week or so. And I really got into it. And it's really a really fun series. And it's one of the major reasons outside of Sailor Moon that I love the magical girl genre. And I've mentioned that in numerous lists and numerous videos before. I do love the magical girl genre because of stuff like this. Cardcaptor Sakura and Sailor Moon and Madoka Magica and whatnot, and Sasami Magical Girls Club and stuff like that. It has such interesting character story and premise, and they finished the main story. But here's the thing: there is an extra manga afterwards, Tokimiyu Out of Mode, that never got adapted into an anime. Why not years later? Can't we just finish it, or at the very least redo the entire series, the main part of the series, in Out of Mode in one complete package? I've seen people like this series. There's people on YouTube that like this series, and across the internet, it is a popular anime, and a lot of people, I recall a lot of people liking it back in the day, and they still like it now, and I think it warrants something rather than just leaving it to rot, or at the very least redo the entire series in a new English by Funimation or Viz or something, and release it on freaking DVD and Blu-ray so we can freaking buy the damn thing, because I want to actually own the series. I don't really care. Do something with it. Make a new season, redub the old series, make a new series closer to the manga, like of Sailor Moon Crystal or something, and add a la mode into it. Whatever the heck, more Tokyo would be good. I really want to see it come back. Really, really bad. And you should know because I own the whole... I did a freaking manga video late last year, or early this year, I should say, where I have the complete manga collection of this series now. And I would love to see something anime related. I'd love to actually own something anime related that's not related to Mew Mew Power. And you can't buy it. I don't want to go internationally and buy it, just the exclusively Japanese version. Have something with English and Japanese, and it'd be really nice. And that's my number 7. Let's end part 1 with number 6. Magi. And I know I'm probably, talking about the obvious here, because they're pretty much freaking going to get another season eventually. Another season for the main, Alibaba, Aladdin type story. And then there's going to be one eventually for Sinbad season 2 as well. There's going to be a second season to the Sinbad series and a third season to the main story as well. It's eventually going to happen. But I had to include it in here because the season 2 ending, when they finish the war with the nations and whatnot, and you just this final major battle with all the people, and what's his name dies, and they defeat the one major villain guy, and blah blah blah. The one mother of what's his face is still out there, and she's still being and her son's all dark and became whatever. It's been a while since I watched the series. I watched the stuff last year. And I watched the Sinbad season a month ago or so, and it was so good. It's such an adventurous series. I love it so much. I equate it to something like a One Piece or a fairy tale, like that very fantasy-based adventure story that can have its own comedy, its own romance, its own whatever the heck else. But when it gets down to it, it has really solid characters, really solid story, and it can really have some interesting freaking battles. And I know it's eventually going to happen, because it's pretty freaking obvious there's more to it, and it is a popular series. But a season 3 of them and a season 2 of these guys would be really freaking nice. And that's it for my part 1 of this top 10 list. I hope you guys liked it. Put in the comment section what you guys think of these 5 so far. And make sure to stay tuned for part 2, where I talk about numbers 5 through 1 with all the honorable mentions. Put in the comment section what you guys think. Like I stated, my name is Sniping Fun. Peace. Please subscribe if you want to. See you all later in the next part. And see you all later in the next video.